Over 2,500 years ago, before Rome rose to power and before Alexander the Great set out to conquer the world, there was an empire that changed history forever, the Persian Empire. It was an empire of warriors, visionaries, and rulers who built one of the greatest civilizations mankind had ever seen. Stretching across 3 continents, the Persian Empire ruled over vast lands with unparalleled power, revolutionizing governance, warfare, and culture. But how did it all begin? What led a small kingdom in Iran to rise and create the first superpower of the ancient world? Stay with us as we dive into the epic origins of the Persian Empire, its legendary rulers, and the extraordinary journey that shaped the course of history. The roots of the Persian Empire. To understand the Persian Empire, we must go back to its origins. The Persian Empire, one of the greatest civilizations in history, has its roots in the rugged mountains and vast plains of what is now Iran. The story begins around 1000 BCE, when various Indo-Iranian tribes migrated to the region. Among them were the Medes and the Persians, 2 closely related groups that shared language, customs, and warrior traditions. The Medes were the first to rise to power. By the late 8th century BCE, they had established a strong kingdom in western Iran. Over time, they expanded their rule, bringing other Iranian tribes under their control. Their dominance peaked in the early 7th century BCE when they joined forces with the Babylonians to defeat the powerful Assyrian Empire. With the fall of Nineveh in 612 BCE, the Medes became one of the most influential powers in the region. Meanwhile, the Persians remained a smaller, less powerful group. They settled in the land of Parsa, also known as Persis, in present-day southwestern Iran. Among them was a noble family known as the Achaemenids, named after their legendary ancestor Achaemenes. While the Medes held supremacy, the Achaemenids ruled a relatively small but independent Persian kingdom under Median authority. For years, the Persians lived under the shadow of the Medes, but change was coming. In 559 BCE, a young and ambitious leader, Cyrus II, took the throne of Persia. Unlike his predecessors, Cyrus had a vision beyond his small kingdom. He saw an opportunity to overthrow the Medes and create something much greater, a vast and unified empire. Cyrus was not just a warrior, he was a strategist. He knew that defeating the Medes required not only military strength but also political skill. Over time, he built alliances with discontented Median nobles and won the loyalty of key figures within the kingdom. His moment came in 550 BCE when he launched a full-scale rebellion against the Median king Astyages. The battle between the Persians and the Medes was fierce, but Cyrus emerged victorious. He captured the Median capital, Ecbatana, and ended their rule. However, instead of destroying the Medes, he did something unexpected. He welcomed them into his administration. This act of wisdom ensured that his new empire remained stable and united. With the Medes now under Persian control, Cyrus had taken the first major step in building his empire. But this was just the beginning. His next goal was to expand Persian rule beyond Iran and create an empire that would surpass anything the world had seen before. Cyrus the Great, the founder. Cyrus the Great, later known as Cyrus the Great, was not just a conqueror. He was a leader who changed the course of history. After overthrowing the Medes, he became the undisputed ruler of Persia. But he did not stop there. With a blend of military skill and diplomacy, he expanded his empire to new heights. His first major conquest after the Medes was Lydia, a wealthy kingdom in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Lydia was ruled by King Croesus, a ruler famous for his immense wealth. Confident in his power, Croesus decided to challenge Cyrus. In 547 BCE, the two armies met in battle. The Lydians fought bravely, but Cyrus's tactical brilliance proved superior. Using clever strategies, he defeated Croesus and captured the Lydian capital, Sardis. Cyrus's conquest of Lydia added enormous riches to the Persian Empire, but it also presented a challenge. Lydia was home to different cultures and traditions, and ruling over such diversity required careful governance. Instead of imposing harsh rules, Cyrus allowed the Lydians to continue their way of life. He respected their customs, appointed local officials to govern, and ensured that they remained loyal through fair treatment rather than fear. With Lydia under his control, Cyrus turned his attention to the east, where he secured Persian dominance over Central Asia. He extended his empire into regions such as Bactria and Sogdiana, bringing a vast stretch of land under Persian rule. But his most famous conquest was yet to come, the legendary city of Babylon. Babylon, located in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, was one of the most important cities of the ancient world. It was ruled by King Nabonidus, who had become unpopular among his people due to his religious policies and neglect of traditional Babylonian gods. Sensing an opportunity, Cyrus presented himself as a liberator rather than a conqueror. In 539 BCE, he launched his campaign against Babylon. His army moved swiftly, and after a decisive victory at the Battle of Opis, the great city fell. When Cyrus entered Babylon, he did not destroy it or harm its people. Instead, he respected their culture and religion, restoring temples and honoring their gods. This earned him the admiration of the Babylonians, who saw him as a just ruler rather than a tyrant. One of the most remarkable acts of Cyrus was his treatment of the Jewish people, who had been held in captivity in Babylon for decades. Unlike previous rulers who sought to control through oppression, Cyrus believed in freedom of worship. He issued a decree allowing the Jews to return to their homeland and rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. This act of kindness was recorded in the Bible, and to this day he is remembered in Jewish history as the Anointed One. Cyrus's approach to rule set him apart from other conquerors. He did not rely on fear or brutality. Instead, he built loyalty through respect and fairness. His empire was vast and diverse, stretching from the Indus Valley in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west. Yet, rather than imposing a single way of life, he allowed different cultures to flourish under Persian rule. To manage such a large empire, Cyrus introduced an efficient system of administration. He divided the empire into regions known as satrapies, each governed by a satrap or governor. These satraps were responsible for maintaining order, collecting taxes, and ensuring that the king's policies were followed. This system provided stability and allowed the empire to function smoothly. Despite his many successes, Cyrus remained a warrior king. He continued to lead military campaigns, securing Persia's borders and expanding its influence. However, in 530 BCE, during a battle against a nomadic tribe in Central Asia, he was killed. His death marked the end of his reign, but his empire lived on. Cyrus was buried in Pasargadae, the first capital of the Persian Empire. His tomb, a simple yet elegant structure, remains a symbol of his legacy. An inscription at his burial site is believed to read, "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you will come. I am Cyrus, who founded the Persian Empire. Do not begrudge me this small piece of earth." These words reflect the humility of a man who, despite his vast empire, saw himself as a servant of history rather than just a ruler. Cyrus's legacy shaped not only the Persian Empire but also the world. His model of leadership influenced countless rulers after him, including Darius the Great and even Alexander the Great. His policies of tolerance, justice, and respect for diversity set a precedent for how empires could be governed. Through his conquests and reforms, Cyrus transformed Persia from a small kingdom into a superpower. He was more than just a conqueror. He was a builder of civilization. His empire would continue to thrive for centuries, but it was his vision and leadership that laid the foundation. Today, he is remembered not just as the founder of the Persian Empire, but as one of history's greatest rulers. The rule of Darius the Great. Cyrus the Great laid the foundation of the Persian Empire, but it was his successor, Darius the Fur, better known as Darius the Great, who transformed it into the most powerful and well-organized empire of its time. When Darius ascended the throne in 522 BCE, Persia was already vast, but managing such a massive territory required strong leadership and efficient governance. Darius was not just a conqueror, he was an administrator, a visionary ruler who knew that an empire's strength depended not only on its army but also on its internal stability. One of his first major reforms was the division of the empire into satrapies, provinces governed by officials called satraps. Each satrap was responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and ensuring loyalty to the king. This system allowed Darius to maintain control over the vast empire while also giving local leaders a degree of autonomy. The satraps were carefully monitored by royal inspectors, often referred to as the king's eyes and ears, who traveled across the empire to report on any signs of rebellion or corruption. Darius also introduced a standardized system of taxation, ensuring that each satrapy contributed fairly based on its wealth and resources. This revenue was used to fund infrastructure, maintain the military, and support grand construction projects. One of his most ambitious projects was the Royal Road, an extensive network of highways that stretched over 2,700 kilometers, 1,700 miles, connecting major cities like Susa, Sardis, and Persepolis. This road allowed for faster trade, communication, and military movement, making the Persian Empire more connected and efficient than ever before. Economically, Darius introduced a uniform currency system, replacing the inconsistent local currencies with a standardized gold coin called the daric. This innovation made trade easier across the empire and strengthened Persia's economy. Under his rule, commerce flourished, linking the diverse regions of the empire from India to the Mediterranean. Communication was crucial for managing an empire as vast as Persia. To ensure that messages traveled quickly and efficiently, Darius the Great established one of the world's first organized postal systems. The Royal Road, stretching over 2,700 kilometers, 1,700 miles, was dotted with relay stations where messengers on horseback could exchange documents and continue their journey. This system was so effective that the Greek historian Herodotus famously wrote about Persian couriers. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed. This early postal system set the groundwork for modern mail delivery services. Darius the Great also played a key role in formalizing Persian law, ensuring that different regions had clear regulations while also respecting local customs. Unlike other ancient empires that imposed a rigid legal system on all subjects, Persia allowed a mix of local and imperial laws to ensure justice while maintaining unity. To prevent corruption, Persian kings appointed officials known as judges of the king, who traveled across the empire to hear disputes and enforce laws fairly. This system set an early precedent for imperial legal systems and would later influence the administration of justice in the Roman Empire and Islamic caliphates. Beyond administration and economy, Darius was also a patron of art and architecture. He commissioned the construction of Persepolis, the magnificent ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire. This city, with its grand palaces, intricate carvings, and impressive stairways, symbolized Persian power and sophistication. It was designed to be a place where representatives from all corners of the empire could gather to pay tribute and celebrate Persian unity. However, ruling such a vast empire also meant dealing with conflicts. While Darius expanded Persian control into regions like Egypt, the Indus Valley, and Thrace, he faced growing resistance from a small yet determined group of city-states in Greece. This would lead to one of the most legendary conflicts in history, the Greco-Persian Wars. Persia versus Greece, the legendary clash. By the late 6th century BCE, the Persian Empire seemed invincible. Its territory stretched from the Indus River in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west, covering diverse lands and peoples. However, despite its size and strength, Persia would face one of its greatest challenges from the Greek city-states, particularly Athens and Sparta. The conflict began when the Ionian Greek cities in Asia Minor, under Persian control, rebelled against Persian rule around 499 BCE. These cities, with support from Athens, sought to free themselves from Persian influence. Although Darius crushed the rebellion, he was angered by Athens' involvement. Determined to punish them, he launched a full-scale invasion of Greece in 490 BCE, leading to the famous Battle of Marathon. At Marathon, the Persian army, vastly outnumbering the Greeks, expected an easy victory. However, the Athenians, led by General Miltiades, used superior tactics to defeat the Persian forces. The Greek hoplites, heavily armored infantrymen, charged the Persian lines in a surprise attack, causing chaos among their ranks. The Persian army suffered heavy losses and was forced to retreat. This unexpected Greek victory sent shockwaves through the ancient world, proving that Persia was not unbeatable. Darius planned another invasion to avenge his defeat, but before he could act, he died in 486 BCE. His son, Xerxes I, inherited the throne and vowed to complete what his father had started. Gathering one of the largest armies the world had ever seen, Xerxes prepared for a massive invasion of Greece. In 480 BCE, Xerxes led his forces across the Hellespont, building a bridge of boats to transport his vast army. The invasion led to the legendary Battle of Thermopylae, where King Leonidas I of Sparta and his 300 Spartans, along with other Greek allies, made a heroic last stand against the Persian army. Although the Greeks were eventually overwhelmed, their courage inspired all of Greece to resist Persian rule. Following Thermopylae, Xerxes marched south and captured Athens, burning parts of the city. However, the war was far from over. The Greeks, using clever strategy, lured the Persian navy into a narrow strait at Salamis, where their smaller, more maneuverable ships defeated the larger Persian fleet. This naval battle was a turning point in the war, forcing Xerxes to retreat. The final blow came in 479 BCE at the Battle of Plataea, where the Greek forces, led by the Spartans and Athenians, decisively defeated the Persian army. With this loss, Persia abandoned its plans to conquer Greece, marking the end of its expansion into Europe. Although Persia remained a dominant power for centuries, the Greco-Persian Wars showed that even the mightiest empire could be challenged. The Greek victories fueled a sense of unity among the city-states and set the stage for future conflicts between Persia and Greece, including the conquests of Alexander the Great. Despite these military setbacks, Persia under Darius and Xerxes remained one of the most advanced and influential civilizations of its time. The administrative and economic systems established by Darius continued to shape the empire for generations. proving that true strength lies not only in conquest, but in governance and stability. The decline of the empire. For more than 2 centuries, the Persian Empire stood as the most powerful civilization in the world. Its vast territory stretched from the Indus River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, governing millions of people from diverse cultures and backgrounds. However, no empire lasts forever. Despite its greatness, internal weaknesses and external threats gradually led to its downfall. After the death of Xerxes I in 465 BCE, the Persian Empire entered a period of decline. Unlike the strong rulers of the past, the kings who followed were often weak, corrupt, or ineffective. Power struggles within the royal family led to frequent assassinations and instability. Court officials and noble families competed for influence, and over time, the central authority of the empire weakened. One of the major issues was the growing independence of satraps, the provincial governors who had been appointed to manage different regions of the empire. During the rule of earlier kings like Darius I, the satraps remained loyal and followed strict orders from the king. However, as the central government became weaker, many satraps started acting like independent rulers, collecting taxes for themselves and forming their own armies. Some even rebelled against the king, further dividing the empire. Economic problems also contributed to Persia's downfall. Heavy taxation, corruption, and mismanagement drained the empire's wealth. While earlier rulers had encouraged trade and maintained stability, later kings focused more on luxury and personal gain, neglecting the needs of the people. As a result, unrest grew, and rebellions became more frequent. Meanwhile, a new threat was rising in the west. In Macedonia, a young and ambitious leader named Alexander the Great was preparing to challenge Persia's dominance. Inspired by his father, King Philip II, who had united the Greek city-states, Alexander sought to conquer the known world. In 334 BCE, he launched an invasion of Persia with a highly trained and disciplined army. The Persian king at the time, Darius III, was not as strong or capable as his predecessors. Though Persia still had a vast army, it was poorly organized compared to Alexander's forces. The two sides clashed in several battles, but the most decisive moment came at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE. Despite outnumbering Alexander's troops, the Persian army suffered a crushing defeat due to the Macedonian leader's superior tactics and strategy. After his victory at Gaugamela, Alexander marched toward the heart of the Persian Empire, Persepolis. When he arrived, he was met with little resistance. Darius III had already fled, hoping to regroup and fight back, but he was soon betrayed and killed by his own men. With Darius dead, Persia was left without a leader, and Alexander took control. In a dramatic and symbolic act, Alexander burned Persepolis to the ground, marking the end of the Achaemenid Empire. Some say he did this as revenge for the Persian destruction of Athens during the Greco-Persian Wars, while others believe it was to show his absolute dominance. Whatever the reason, the burning of Persepolis marked the final chapter of the Persian Empire. Although Alexander continued to rule Persia and adopted many Persian customs, the empire, as it once was, had come to an end. What had once been the most powerful civilization in the world had fallen, not just due to external invasion, but also because of the corruption and instability within its own borders. The legacy of Persia. Although the Persian Empire fell, its influence did not disappear. In fact, Persia's impact on history remains strong even today. The systems and ideas developed by the Persians shaped the world for centuries and influenced future civilizations, including the Greeks, Romans, and later Islamic empires. One of Persia's greatest contributions was its system of governance. The empire was one of the first to introduce an organized and efficient bureaucracy, dividing its vast territory into satrapies. This method of administration was later adopted by other great empires, including the Romans. Even today, many modern governments use similar provincial divisions for better governance. Persia's royal road, which connected the empire from east to west, was another major achievement. This road improved trade, communication, and military movement, setting the foundation for future trade routes, including the Silk Road. The idea of building vast infrastructure to connect different regions became a model for later civilizations. Perhaps one of the most remarkable aspects of Persian rule was its tolerance policy. Unlike many conquerors of the time, Persian rulers allowed the people they ruled to maintain their own religions, traditions, and cultures. This approach helped maintain stability and unity across a vast and diverse empire. Later rulers, including Alexander the Great and the Romans, adopted similar policies to maintain peace within their territories. Even after its fall, Persian culture, language, and traditions continued to thrive. New Persian dynasties, such as the Parthians, 247 BCE, 224 CE, and the Sassanids, 224–651 CE, carried on many of the Achaemenid traditions. The Persian language evolved, influencing the development of modern Farsi, Persian, which is still spoken in Iran today. Persian literature, poetry, and art flourished, with works like the Shahnameh, an epic poem written by Ferdowsi, preserving the rich history of Persia. Persian architecture also left a lasting mark. The grand palaces of Persepolis inspired later Islamic and Mughal architectural styles. Many Persian innovations in science, medicine, and philosophy were passed down to later civilizations, influencing scholars in the Islamic Golden Age and the Renaissance in Europe. Unlike many ancient empires, Persia promoted cultural exchange and religious tolerance. Cyrus the Great's Cylinder of Human Rights declared that all people, regardless of religion or ethnicity, should live freely. This groundbreaking concept of rights set a precedent for later civilizations, including the Magna Carta and the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Even in modern times, the legacy of the Persian Empire can still be felt. Many political structures, economic policies, and cultural influences can be traced back to the ideas first introduced by the Achaemenids. Persia pioneered a water management system known as qanats, underground channels that transported fresh water from mountains to dry plains. This revolutionary irrigation system enabled cities and farmlands to thrive even in arid regions. The qanat system was so effective that it is still used in parts of Iran, Afghanistan, and North Africa today. The ruins of Persepolis stand as a reminder of Persia's former glory, attracting historians and visitors from around the world. The Persian Empire may have fallen, but its legacy continues to shape the world. From its innovative governance to its contributions to art, culture, and diplomacy, Persia was a civilization that defined an era. Its story is one of greatness, resilience, and influence, a story that deserves to be remembered for generations to come. So, what do you think of the Persian Empire's journey? Which moment amazed you the most? The brilliance of Cyrus the Great, the empire's revolutionary governance, or its vast cultural influence? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more historical deep dives.